let's begin by taking a look at how we can set up a basic sculpt in Blender. So again, we're using 2.72b as our Blender build for this course. So keep that in mind. We'll start with the basic startup file, and let's go ahead and just delete our cube. And I want to create something simple just to take a look at the sculpting tools. So let's go to create. I'm just going to bring in a grid, and I want to make this really, really high res. The key to being able to do the kind of sculpting that you're probably thinking of is having lots and lots of polygons. Now, we don't necessarily need those polygons if we're doing some sort of overall shaping, but we'll take a look at that as this course goes on. So for this, I'm going to go ahead and add 200 divisions in the X, 200 in the Y, so we have a little bit more res to work with. I'm also going to come in and turn off the floor. So let's come in and turn off this grid floor so that we can kind of see what we're doing here. Now we've got enough resolution in the model, which is an important part, and we also need to go to sculpt mode to be able to do this. Now we can come down to object mode and we can jump up to sculpt mode. We can also use the new pie menus to do this. So if we go into user preferences, go to add-ons, and I'm just going to type in pie, turn this on. And so now what we can do is just hit the tab key, and I can come up and very quickly select any mode that I want. So once we're in sculpt mode, we've got our geometry active. We can come over here on the left, and you can see we have our sculpt tools. We have different sections here. So we've got brush, texture, stroke, curve, dyne topo, symmetry, and history. So if we open up the brush, you'll see that there's a big sort of thumbnail of the kind of effect that we're going to get with this particular brush. So our basic brush is going to be our sculpt draw brush, and then we have all these different brushes that we can select from, and we'll look at those as we go through this course. So we've got this brush selected. Next, coming down, we have the radius of the brush, so the brush size, and the brush strength. Okay, so the size is represented by this pink circle, which you can see here. And the strength we can't really see unless we come in and actually sculpt. And so if I come in and sculpt across, you can see that that's raised up off of the surface. If I want to change the radius of the brush, so I want to make it bigger or smaller, I can use the slider here, or I can hit the F key and scale this up and down by moving, in this case, my pen. So I can change the brush size that way. That's the F key, as in fox. If I want to change the strength of it, so right now it's at half. If I want to go full strength, you can see that pulls it up even more. If I want to change the strength using a hotkey, I can use Shift F, as in fox. And then this is a little bit, I found it a little bit different anyway. To decrease the strength, you're going to pull this out, and you can see you get a numerical feedback. And then you can also see the effect kind of fading out, but you want to enlarge this to make less of an effect. It doesn't have an effect. You're not doing anything with the brush size or anything like that. Pull this out to have less of an effect, and then pull it in towards the middle to have full effect. So full strength. Okay, and you can. It's easy to tell because of the opacity of that black circle, and then also the numerical value. 1 obviously is full. 0 is no strength. So that's Shift F, as in fox, to do that. So you can come in and change those values using those hotkeys. Okay, we can come in and also, instead of kind of pulling this up, we have the ability to push it in. And so you've got these two buttons here, add and subtract. So if I hit subtract, when I do the same thing here, you can see that it's actually pushing into the surface. Now, while I'm sculpting, I can also come in, and let me get kind of a smaller brush size. I can also use the Control key to do the opposite of whatever it is that I have selected. So in this case, I have subtract selected. If I hit Control, it's going to go back and add it. So if I just leave this on add, I can come in, add a stroke, hit Control, and go ahead and push one in, and then immediately come right back and add one. So you do have the ability to switch back and forth very, very quickly. Now you can also hit Shift to go back over your strokes to smooth them out. So you can see here I'm kind of smoothing everything out, just holding down Shift. So between Control and Shift, you're able to pull out of the surface, push into the surface, and then smooth. And this is going to be common if you've used other sculpting applications. This is something that's pretty common, being able to modify your strokes like that. Now we also have some different curve settings that we can change. So the curve is going to kind of dictate the shape of the stroke. So think of this as sort of a profile of the stroke shape from the middle of the brush to the outer edge. And so, for instance, if you wanted something that was really sharp, you could come in here and you can see that's a little bit sharper. And you can modify those curves just by tweaking the points on that curve. And you can see there it's getting us a little bit of a nicer point on it. Now right now you can see that our strokes are happening on both sides. That's just because we have symmetry on by default here. We'll talk more about symmetry here in a couple of lessons, just so you understand that. So in this curve you have a bunch of presets here. We can do more of like a soft ball shape that ends abruptly at the side there. So you can see it doesn't really blend down to the side as much as these other ones do. See, there's a very kind of sharp line there. We've also got more of like a straight line from top to the bottom. So this would correspond to this peak, and then this to this outer edge here. We can have no curve basically. So this kind of affects the shape of the overall curve. Then you can come in back in with your shift and maybe kind of smooth it out a little bit. Okay, so that's a look at the basic brush, okay, or this basic tool. You've got remember your radius and then also your strength. You've also got the ability to add or subtract, and you can change that on the fly by hitting the control key as you're sculpting to do basically the opposite of whatever it is that you have selected. You also can hit shift to smooth your stroke. And then you can also modify the curve, basically kind of the shape and fall off of the particular brush that you are using. Okay, so now that we've got kind of a basic look at that, remember you got to be in sculpt mode to do this as well. Next, let's take a look at some of the strokes that we have available. So there are different kinds of strokes that we can use, and also we have the ability to create more of a smooth curve if we need it. So we'll take a look at that next.